Kuf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. We'll begin Kuf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom with the 2 dots. Lezer says the mitzvah milah is Deichel Shabbos and also the Machshir. How does Rabbi Lezer know that? If you want to say that he learns from the other ones, for instance, from Lulav, from Shtei Lechem, from Omer, where there the Torah says we learn out from there that they're Deichel Machshir and Deichel Shabbos. No, you can ask like we learned before. We can, like we mentioned before, that they all have their own particular chumras. They all have something special about them, whether the lulav is toned daled minim, or the korbanos, or tzorach gavoyas and avoida. So you can't learn out from them. They have the particular chumras, and we could say that that's why they're Deichel Shabbos. So how do I know that Milah is Deichel Shabbos? And secondly, there's another reason to say that dafka over there, we would say that the Machshir Deichel Shabbos, because over there, if you don't do the mitzvah on that day, if it's Chal on Shabbos and you don't do it on Shabbos, then you've lost it. You can't do it the next day. You can't bring the lulav after Sukkot, or the Raisa, the Medina outside the base of Mikdash after the first day. You can't bring the Aimer after the 16th of Nisan. You can't bring the Shtei Lechem after Shuas. But Milah is a mitzvah to be Mal, Milah B'zman on the 8th day. But if he doesn't do it on the 8th day, for every day afterwards until he does it, until, for the rest of his life, he has the mitzvah Milah. So it's not lost. It's not completely lost. So therefore, there's a reason to say that these other mitzvahs, that it's Deichel Shabbos. But why would we say that by Milah? We wouldn't be able to learn out necessarily that by Milah it's the same case. The Torah says by Milah, it says, Ubayom Hashmini, on the 8th day, do the Milah, Va'afilu b'Shabbos, whenever that 8th day is, even on Shabbos, then you do the Milah. Well, if that's the case, then why doesn't the Torah only write it by Milah? If we have a limud for a Milah, let there only be a limud by Milah, and learn the other ones from Milah. Because the Tzad Chomer that was mentioned before is, well, if Milah, which doesn't have the Tzad Chomer, is Deichel Shabbos, certainly the other ones which do have the Tzad Chomer. Our answer is no, but Milah, we see the chashivas of Milah that's mentioned the word bris 13 times in the parasha with Avram Avinu when he was in Stav on the bris. It's mentioned as 13 times, so you see the importance, the chashivas of Milah that is mentioned 13 times bris. There's Nichras Allah Shleisha Brisa, so I would say that Dafka by Milah's Deichel Shabbos, Mashein Kain. By the other cases, that's why it has to write them by all of these cases. So Ad Kan Lo Pligi Rabbanon Le Machshirim. The Machlaik is Rabbanon Lezer. We see it's only by Machshirim. If the things that are necessary, the utensils, etc., what's the Machshirim to do the mitzvah, the Hechatimsa, the preliminaries to do the milah, are Deichel Shabbos or not. But everyone agrees that the Etzem Mitzvah Milah is Deichel Shabbos. Perhaps making the knife, that's a machlekes, but taking a knife and cutting and doing the Milah on Shabbos, everyone says it's Deichel Milah, and how do I know that Milah is Deichel Shabbos? Amar Ula halach. It's halach halamaysh misinai. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. It's halach halamaysh misinai that it's Deichel Shabbos. Meisel Asya Kasha. How do I know that Pikuach Nefesh is Deichel Shabbos? In order to save a life, you're Deichel Shabbos. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Omer, he says, Ma Milah Shi Achaz Me'avar Shel Adam, that Madach Milah, which is only one limb of a person, Deichel Shabbos, Kal V'chomer Pikuach Nefesh Deichel Shabbos. So certainly a Kal V'chomer to save the entire life, it's Deichel Shabbos. Madach Milah, which is only the tikkun for one aver, it's Doicha Shabbos, to the tikkun for the whole goof, for the entire body, to save the whole body, certainly should be Doicha Shabbos. Now, and if you're going to say halacha, that milah, the mitzvah's milah's Doicha Shabbos, is a halacha l'maish Sinai, if that's the case, how can we learn out a kal v'chomer from halacha l'maish Sinai? The rule is that kal v'chomer ma'halacha miyasa. Can you learn out a kal v'chomer from halacha? Can you learn out a kal v'chomer from something which is halacha l'maish Sinai? Tanya, we learned in the Baraisa, Amalai Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Kiva Etzem Kesera Metama Halach, that the etzem, a bone the size of a sora of a barley seed, is metama is halach. Rabbi Yisadam kal v'chomer vein dan kal v'chomer me'halacha. You can't learn out a kal v'chomer from something which is halacha l'maish Sinai. So the case over there is l'gabei a nazir. If a nazir comes into contact with these types of tumah, does he have to shave and be seiser his nazirs? If he comes into contact with a mass, it nullifies the entire nazirus. The days that he counted are cancelled out. He has to start from the beginning. He has to shave himself and start from the beginning. And those days are lost. So that's if he comes into contact with a mess. Elazar ben Azariah says that, well, we know from halacha l'maish Sinai that if he comes into contact with a bone from a mass the size of a sa'ira barley seed, that's the same halacha. And therefore, we should learn out a kal v'chomer to a revius of dam, of blood from a mass. Why is that? Because we should say as follows. Madach, we say that an etzem kisayra is kal. It's not metame ba'oyel, and yet a nazir is megaleach, it says that the nazir and he has to shave. So a vias dam, which is chamor, which is metame ba'oil, if it's under a roof, that anything that's in the roof, under that same roof, is mekabel tumah, just like a mess. So certainly we should say a kal v'chomer, that it says the nazirus and a nazir is megaleach. But Rabbi Akiva says, no, you can't make such a kal v'chomer, because even though it's correct in terms of the kulas and the chumras, but that the etzem kesera is megaleach is halacha l'maish Sinai ein danim kal v'chomer mehalacha. So we see there's a principle of ein danim kal v'chomer mehalacha. So how can you say that milah, that it's Doicha Shabbos, is halacha l'maish Sinai? How can you then say that make a kal v'chomer to say that the pikuach nefesh is Doicha Shabbos a kal v'chomer from milah? If milah is halacha l'maish Sinai, ain't that kal v'chomer halacha? Ela Amar Elazar, he says, Ase ois ois. It's a gzera shava of ois ois. Because it says by Shabbos, ki ois he, that Shabbos is an ois, the Shabbos itself is an ois. And by milah it says, vaylacha ois bris. So in both cases it says ois, we make a gzera shava, and say that therefore we say that the milah, that when it says milah, that you must perform the milah, it says ois means it's as if it says it, and you must perform the milah on Shabbos. Since there's gzera shava, ois tell me that there's a reference to the milah on Shabbos, so if you must perform the milah on for the mitzvah milah on the 8th day, you must perform it even on Shabbos. Frank the Gemara, El Me'ata, Tefillin, D'chsiv, Bahen, Ois, L'tchei Shabbos. Well, Tefillin also says Ois. That Vayla, Chala, Ois, Al Yodcha. It also says Ois. So should you not say the same thing that Tefillin should be Doicha Shabbos? The Rishonim has a kasha, well, what do you mean? Tefillin, there's no dechia in the wearing of Tefillin. It doesn't necessitate being Doicha Shabbos, it's just wearing it. And even if he wears it in the Rishus HaRabim, it's not considered carrying. With the Raisa, it's not considered carrying, it's considered malbush. So what is the Dechiyah of Shabbos involved with Tefillin? So the Ramban, the Rashba, they're saying, what it means is, it would mean as follows. Then you would say that there should be Tefillin, should be Doicha Shabbos. Now it doesn't mean the Etzem mitzvah, but rather you should say the Machshirin are Doicha Shabbos. Since it says a Dechiyah over here, and it doesn't involve the mitzvah itself, so it must be, therefore, it must involve that the machshir are doicha, similar to what we said and Rabbi Lezer by lulav. And we know that's not the case. Elo can't be the Gzera Shava can't be ois. Elo asa bris bris. It's Gzera Shava with bris. It says bris by Shabbos, it says bris by Mila. Frank the Gemara Gadol Dechsi by bris Litcha Shabbos. Well, if this really is an authentic Gzera Shava, then we should apply it to the case even on not on the 8th day, even by a Gadol, someone who is past the 8th day. It's not a Mila Bismana. We should say similarly that it's Deicha Shabbos. But we know that it's only a Mila Bismana that's Deicha Shabbos, and a Mila that's Shalei Bismana, a Mila V'Gadol is not Deicha Shabbos. So, therefore, we see that this cannot be an authentic Gzera Shava. Elo, the Gemara says, also Deiris. Rather, the Gzera Shava is from the word Deiris. It says Deiris in both cases. It says by Shabbos in the rest of Bris Olam. It says Deiris, and it says by Milo ben Shmeinis Yomem Yimo Lachem Kol Zocher LeDeiris Eicha. It says Deiris in both cases, so that should teach you that Mila is Deiris Shabbos. Frank the Gemara Tzitzis Dirsi Bei Deiris. Well, it says also by Tzitzis it says Deiris Lidchu Shabbos. You should say it should be Deiris Shabbos for that reason, and Tzitzis is not Deiris Shabbos. Ella Amarav Nach Bar Yitzchak. Rather, what we say the Gzera Shava is done on Ois Bris V'Doiris, Mi Ois Bris V'Doiris, Lapuke Hanach, the Chad Hu Dechsi Bahad. Elamai, the Gzera Shava is that both Mila and Shabbos, it says all three of these. It says Ois Bris V'Doiris, and that's the only mitzvah that it says all three. So it's only Mila that it's Deicha Shabbos, and therefore it doesn't apply to the other cases. It doesn't apply to tefillin. It doesn't apply to tzitzis, because on those cases it doesn't have all three. It's only Mila. So that is one limud that we have the Gzera Shava to tell me that it's the mitzvah of Mila as Deicha Shabbos. And Rabbi Lezer darshans the Vayayim that it says Vayam Eshmini to tell me that it's Makshirin. Rabbi Yochanan has a different limud to tell me that Mila is Deicha Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kra Bayayim Afilu B'Shabbos. He says that we learn out this Bayayim, the Bayayim that it says by Mila, that you learn out according to the Chachamim. That's how you learn out that the Mila is Deicha Shabbos. Now Rashi explains that according to Rabbi Lezer, he uses that from Abshira. So he must say that the Mila itself is a halacha. We asked the Kasha, how could you say that Mila is a halacha? L'maishim Sinai. If that's the case, how can you learn out that Pikuach Nefesh is Deicha Shabbos, the Kal V'Chaimer from Mila, Eila Meidim, the Kal V'Chaimer Mehalacha? So Rashi explains that according to Rabbi Lezer, he must learn that Pikuach Nefesh is Deicha Shabbos is from a different limud. It's not from the Kal V'Chaimer. But according to the Chachamim, they learn out that the Etzem Mila, the Mila's Deicha Shabbos is Bayayim, and Machshir is not Deicha Shabbos. Amalei Reish Lachshel Riyach Ne'el Me'alta Machusri Kapara Dachsiv B'Bayayim Achaname Da'cha Shabbos. Well, if that's the case, you should say B'Machusri Kapara by Azava, that over there it also says Bayayim. Then you should say that it's Deicha Shabbos as well. Over there it says that they bring on the 8th day that they have to bring, and by Yom Hashmini they bring their karbonos. So you should say the same thing, that if the 8th day falls out on Shabbos, that it should be Deicha Shabbos. Mora says, no, how mi boile b'yom v'loy b'layla. That b'yom is to tell me that, no, not that it's Deicha Shabbos, it's to teach me that the korban is brought on the daytime and not on the nighttime. So, frankly, more hainamim boile b'yom v'loy b'layla. Well, here also you need the b'yom to teach me that the milah is done in the day and not at nighttime. Mora says, no, you don't. How homi ben shmeinis yomim nafka. That you learn out from the different pasuk ben shmeinis yomim. Here, b'yom hashmini, this is b'yom hashmini, yimal b'sor alosa, it's to tell me b'yom afilu b'shabbos. Frankly, Gemara, hainami b'yom savoisa nafka. Korbanos, we know that korbanos have to be brought in the daytime and not at nighttime. The pasuk says, b'yom savosa, the day that Hashem commanded them to bring the korbanos. So, in general terms, korbanos have to be brought during the day, not at night. So why do I need a specific pasuk by Mechusri Kapora to teach me day and not night? More answers also, even though that's true, and generally speaking, we know that, but it's true. Here, I need it specifically to tell me by these cases that it has to be dafka day, not night. Because I might have thought that since the Torah has Rahmanis, and it allows the poor person who is Tomei, who is a Zov, if he can't afford a behemah, he can bring birds. So you see how important it is that it's brought, that the Torah is chas on him. So you might think we make an exception. Legabe this, that there's a further exception, and therefore we can be brought even at night, even though korbanos generally have to be brought during the day and not at night. But here we see that there's an exception over here. You might think this is different, and it could be brought at night as well. Kamash Milan. That's why it has to teach me over here that it has to be brought by day and not night, and therefore you cannot learn out. It's not available to teach me that it's Doicha Shabbos. It's not therefore Doicha Shabbos. Maskiv la Ravina. Well, Elamiyata, if you say that there's an exception over here, and since it's brought bedolas, and therefore we should allow other exceptions, we might have thought that you can bring it at night. So Elamata Yezar Kashaban. You should say, Azar, a non-Kayan, could be bring the carbon, and someone is, even if he's a Kayan, but he's an Einan. It was the day that Rahman Islam, there was one of his Krivim were Nifter, which you should say that in this case, even though generally an Einan cannot be makar the carbon, you should say similarly there's an exception. In this case, he could be makar the carbon. The more answers, Ha'adra Kra. The Torah restored. Ha'adra. Once we see that the Torah says, no, we do learn out that Bayayim is to teach me Bayayim v'loy b'layla, even by the case of Chusar Kippurim. So the Torah's Ha'adra. It restores it. It tells me no, there's no exception. The singular exception is that it can be brought bedalos. But other exceptions, we still have the same halachas that apply to the regular korbanos. So just like over here, it has to be day and not night. It has to be dafka with a kayan, and it cannot be with an einan. Like Taisa Akasha, what do you mean? How could you possibly have a havamina that you got a zar could be makravet? The Torah says clearly. It says kayan in the parsha. It says in the parsha. It says clearly kayan. So Taisa says that it's lav dafka to say that zar. Other Rishonim learn differently. The Ramban said you might have thought that it says kayan is l'chadchila, but b'di'evet, if there's no kayan, in order to hasten the tahara of the zava, that would be kosher with a zar. The Rashba says that I might have thought that the kayan in this context means that that when it says kayan, that the pasuk says kain means the dafka has to be a kain. But when it says that a yeh zar kosher, it doesn't mean a non-kain. It means a zar, a kain who is not wearing his big day kahuna, which Lagabi other korbanos is treated like a zar, treated like a non-kain. And the korbanos apostle, you might have think that zar, Pasuk says a kain, it has to be a kain. But you might have thought that a kain, even though he's not wearing the big day kahuna, it would be kosher kamash malan. Ravacha bar Yaakov Amar Kro Shmini. He learns differently. He says Shmini afilu b'Shabbos. It says Shmini, and therefore the 8th day, even if the 8th day falls out on Shabbos. Frank the Gemara, what do you mean? Hi Shmini boy leilam muteshvi. It says Shmini. It tells you the 8th day. It can't be done on the 7th day. It has to be done on the 8th day. So it's not extra to teach me that even if the 8th day is day for Shabbos. Gemara says no. But Shmini mi ben Shmoinos Yomim nafka. That I can learn out from the fact that the Torah, there's another pasuk says, in a different pasuk says mi ben Shmoinos Yomim. It says 8 days, that the meal is done 8 days. So therefore, here means Shmini afilu b'Shabbos. In fact, the Gemara v'akatim yiboy lechadli muteshvi v'chadli muteshvi. I need both. I need one to teach me that you can't do it before the 8th day, but I need the other pasuk to tell me that it should be done on the 8th day and not later. Now, if he didn't do it on the 8th day, we learn out that he has to. The meal is by God, he does it even afterwards. Up until the end of his life. But the mitzvah is to be done, there's a mitzvah to do it on the 8th day. So one is to teach me not before the 8th day, and the other one is l'mutei chi, that should be done on the 8th day, not on the 9th. If I only have one pasuk, I would exclude the seventh day because I would say, well, because the Zman has not yet arrived. That's why 7 is not kosher. Aval mishmini ve'elav zmanu, but I might have thought that once the 8th day comes, then you can do it any time from the 8th day and on. So therefore, I need this pasuk to teach me that the mitzvah is dafka on the 8th day. Now, we reject this drasha and we say that it is that like the drasha of Rav Yochanan.